Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. If we've not met before, I'm Graham Williamson and I'm Commodore at Hayling Island Sailing Club. In effect, this is a repeat of a presentation I gave to the Spring General Meeting on this subject a few weeks ago. We are recording this and the recording will be available on the website afterwards. This is part of a consultation with members as part of the review of our unincorporated status. So we will be inviting questions afterwards. There are about a dozen slides, so I expect to be about 15 to 20 minutes, and I suggest we take your questions after that. So can we crack on, Henry? Here we go. Okay, next one. So we're going to look at four particular subjects this evening. What is this all about? Secondly, why we're looking at it now. We'll look at the review and what its outcomes were, and then we'll take a few minutes looking at where do we go from here. So firstly, what is it about? Over the last 100 years or so, the club has been through a number of different iterations, including being Sandy Point Limited, Hayling Island Sailing Club Limited, and in 1957, it became an unincorporated association of members called Hayling Island Sailing Club. And that's where we've been for about the last 70 years. And it's served us well so far. Being unincorporated has both benefits and risks. On the benefit side, we get a lot of flexibility with our rules, and there's little formality in our reporting to authorities and government. On the flip side of that, liability rests with the members, and that liability is unlimited. So in the event of anything happening at the club here, the members are the people to whom any claimant might turn. Our protection relies upon having good insurance in place, and that's what we do. We spend a substantial amount of money, £30,000 a year or so, on insurance premiums for the club. It's worth noting that in legal terms, the club is not a legal entity, and so it can't easily contract with third parties. And where recently we've been doing things like the hot water replacement and other major works, we feel as though we've got away with it a little bit rather than being confident in where we are. The final point really is the club cannot hold assets, which is why we have trustees who hold the club money and premises in their own names on behalf of the club. The landscape that we operate in is continually changing, and as a matter of good governance, it's important to check that the benefits and risks of being unincorporated remain in balance. Okay, thank you. So why are we looking at this now? For a number of years, our governing body, the Royal Yachting Association and Sport England, have been strongly recommending clubs to become incorporated, as in limited companies. A lot of clubs have done so, including all of the clubs in Chichester Harbour. We're the only one who hasn't. Menjum completed a couple of months ago on their incorporation. Our club turnover now regularly tops £2 million, and for the size and complexity, Hayling Island Sailing Club is an outlier in the UK. And I've had personally a number of conversations with the RYA where they are concerned about that situation. This was last reviewed by General Committee about 10 years ago, and at that point it was decided not to proceed with any recommendation to the members. In that period of 10 years or so, all our existing risks, our operational risks for on-water, house activities, all that kind of stuff remain and haven't significantly changed. But new risks have emerged and they are increasing. So the feeling of Strategy Committee is that the risks and benefits of the club being unincorporated are now out of balance. And the recommendation for us from Strategy Committee to General Committee is that our situation, our position should be reviewed. Okay. So, what the review process has been for the last couple of years, as I've reported to the AGM and the Spring General Meeting in the last couple of years, is that a working group, which has been the Strategy Committee, has been looking at this subject. We've recently been joined by Caroline Ulster, who's a retired solicitor and club member, and she's supporting myself, John Message, Sarah Mitchell, and Sophie Costard. And James Yearsley. And the work we've done to date has been to review the strategic risks for the club and look at other ways that we might mitigate those risks. We've interviewed and spoken to other clubs who've been through the process, and we spent a lot of time looking at the RYA documentation and their case studies. We've been looking at what needs to be done to incorporate and looking at the resources that might be involved in going through the process. And we've been developing a roadmap, an outline of a roadmap with estimated timescales and milestones to help us make decisions. Thank you. So the outcome of the reviews have been that our operating landscape has changed in subtle but significant ways in the last 10 years. The most notable is that it's far harder for us to be dealing with the banks due to their own changes in legislation. Things like you'll know your client requirements and anti-money laundering rules have all got quite a lot tougher. And they're being much more demanding about evidencing incoming and outgoings. Insurances are becoming more difficult to secure as the insurance companies are also looking to be much more demanding and interested in how the club operates. And there are other risks as well, such as safeguarding, which even 4 or 5 years ago wasn't a significant factor in our thinking, and it's escalating rapidly. Our observation is that the rate of change in all these subjects is quickening, and we have serious concerns that HIS could be overtaken by events and not be able to operate effectively as an unincorporated body. So there is a clear requirement for General Committee to safeguard the members and the future of the club by looking at all options. And the consensus emerging from General Committee is that incorporating is the right thing for the club and for members. So it's now time for us to report to the members on our thinking before we do anything else. Really important to say at this point that no final decisions have been made. And this report is to advise the members that General Committee will be continuing to do due diligence on this over the next couple of years, over the next few months, not even a couple of years, and will probably, strong probability, be bringing recommendations to make a change to future meetings. But there is nothing to be voted on at this point in time. We can completely understand that members might have a concern about any change to the way the club exists and operates. So we've established 4 key principles that we must adhere to for ourselves. So club culture must be maintained through the process and into the future. Members should not see any noticeable difference in the way that they interact with the club and the structure of the club. There will need to be some changes to bring our rules in line with articles of association required by company law, but our intention is those rule changes and bylaws should be absolutely minimal, so that the least we need to get away with to become a company should we decide to do that. And fourthly, no fundamental changes to the cost structure of being a member here. So for us, critical considerations. The process of developing any recommendation that we might bring to you as the members must be transparent. You must be consulted, and you must have good information and an opportunity to challenge any information to enable you to make the right decision for yourselves. We recognise that communication is essential, so there'll be a number of consultation sessions, some drop in and some more or less on this kind of format. Information will be on the website and on the club notice board. There'll be regular roundups issued through the newsletters and by email. And getting your questions, your inquiries about it is very important to making sure that we come up with the right solution. So there's a clear channel for members' questions, which is through the email address that I've put on the screen here, incorporation@hisc.co.uk. Any information, any questions coming into there will be responded on an responded to on an FAQ document, frequently asked questions, which will be continually updated to respond to the questions that we receive and to give us full information as we can. And it's important that there's easy access for you to the relevant documents for you to be able to review them. So, outline sketch for the timeline and process. If events don't overtake us and require us to approach this more quickly than we plan, the earliest that we would consider making a change would be January the 1st, 2027. So if the recommendation from General Committee is to incorporate, there will be a requirement for 2 separate member votes. The first would be for us to adopt an enabling change to our existing Rule 2.2 to permit the club's assets to be transferred to a new entity. At the moment, if the club is wound up, the assets have to go to another club, to the RYA, or to a charity, and that's clearly not what we're intending. So the proposal for that rule change would be the 2025 AGM in October of this year. The second member vote would be for incorporation. And we're proposing that vote would take place 2026 spring general meeting, that's April. And if those 2 votes were in favour, then incorporation would happen 1st of January 2027 to align with membership renewal. Which is, for process, that's quite an important fact. So the next steps from here are that we will be retaining legal and financial advice to give us the best information on current legislation. There's a number of implications that we need to get to the bottom of to be completely clear about our status. One of them is tax. One of them is stamp duty in relating to the transfer of the assets from the trustees into the new company. We need to check our rate situation with the local authority. We need to check our VAT situation. And we also need to clarify the situation with relation to Hayling Island Sail Training Trust, which, as you probably remember, is a charity associated to the club dating back 25 years or so. We'll need to obtain HMRC tax clearances for any change. We need to prepare documentation for you to review and to have your opportunity to contribute to. We'll put in place the plans for communicating with you, starting with these consultations, and we'll continue to develop the critical path and the project plan. So the next kind of half a dozen things. So in summary, the risks to the club are now different from what they were 10 years ago, and they're changing quickly. We want to approach this topic steadily, but if events start to overtake us, we may need to speed up. Incorporation would better protect the members and the future of the club. There's a lot of work to be done, but we're very keen to inform members at this early stage of what it is that we're thinking. Please. So, since the AGM, the information, this presentation and the FAQ questions have been posted on the website. The quickest way to get to them is go to the quick links at the bottom of the homepage on the HISC website, and you'll see there's a little couple of lines there saying incorporation documents. So if you click on that, it'll take you to this page. Please, Henry. Which looks like this. And if you look at the bottom couple of lines under the heading document, you'll see there's the SGM Incorporation initial review presentation, which is this, and the frequently asked questions document, which we mentioned a couple of minutes ago. So at the moment, they're the 2 key documents, and more will be added to that. Okay, so questions. There's lots of opportunity for questions. Very happy to take some now. If you raise your hand, Henry will unmute you and let you in. After this, you can send your questions to incorporation@hisc.co.uk. And the drop-in sessions, the next one is scheduled for the 26th of July, and that will be another formal one, more like this. But in the meantime, there'll be opportunity for one-to-one sessions with me or any of the strategy team in the club. So we'll let you know more about that as time goes. So, does anybody have any questions for me at this point? Nothing so far. Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. As I say, do please feel free to come and ask and send any queries that you've got to incorporation@hisc.co.uk, and that will be the focal point for all queries and for all responses. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you for joining us, and speak to you soon. Bye.